بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Let's continue where we left off. We are still talking about التحليل اللغوي الكامل for this segment of a larger verse. لله على الناس حج البيت. We've talked about li, the lam, we talked about the word Allah. We still have more to say about the word Allah. Then we talked about lillahi as a shibul jumla. We also talked about ala. We talked about al extensively. Then we looked at the al in anas. We looked at different variation, two different interpretations for the al in the word anas. These two interpretations, and then let's go on to the grammar of the word anas. So we kind of looked into all these different things about the word anas. We looked at al and now look at the word annas grammatically, and then we'll look at annas again from the dictionary perspective, and we'll extract from that meaning amazing insights into the nature of people. So annas, ismun majroor. It's an ism majroor. Why? Because there's ala before it. Wa alamatu jarrihi. And what's the sign of its majroorness? Jarrihi. Al kasra. The kasra that you see here is al-zahira, not muqaddara, not assumed or implied or implicit. Ala akhirihi. So this is a standard Arab thing that they teach you in beginner level grammar courses. Ism majroor wa ala jarrihi al-kasra al-zahira ala akhirihi. Nothing fancy here. This is something you learned early on. Now let's look at alan nas as a unit. It's a two-word unit. Technically, it's three words if you count al as a separate word. But let's keep it, loosely speaking, it's a two-word shibhul jumla. This shibhul jumla, what is it doing? What is its grammatical function? Three possible i'rab for this shibul jumla. And if you look at advanced Quranic analysis books such as the one by Al-Halabi, he goes into even more interesting nuances. We will look at three perspectives on the i'rab of shibul jumla ala nas. First perspective is that it's khabar muqaddam awwal. Okay, that's the first perspective. Khabar muqaddam awwal. The second perspective is that it's khabar muqaddam thanin. So you know how khabar awwal, khabar than, you remember that from QL2? In QL2, we learned that khabar can yajuz an yata'addad, can be muta'addid, meaning can come in more than one. You can have more than one khabar for a given mubtada. So when you have more than one khabar for a given mubtada, for example, if I say Allahu, let's take an example from the Quran. It's always better to take an example from the Quran instead of making up an example. Allahu ra'ufun rahimun. So when we see verses like Allahu alimun halim, right? You will see this style in the Quran where the word Allah is used as mubtada, and then you have two khabars. Khabar awwal is alimun, khabar thanin is halimun. And you can have many more khabars if you want to. So this is just an example to give you an idea, to remind you of the fact that you can have more than one khabar. If you look at alimun, that's khabar. And if you have more than one khabar, then alimun is khabar awwal. And okay, so that's one thing. Second thing is khabar muqaddam. What is meant by muqaddam? Muqaddam means brought forward. Brought forward. Usually the khabar is not before mubtada. Usually the khabar is after the mubtada. So muqaddam means a khabar that has been brought forward. Okay. And there is a balagha angle to that, and we'll talk about the balagha angle of why the khabar has been brought forward. Grammatically speaking, if the khabar is shibul jumla and the mubtada is nakira, then it must be muqaddam. The khabar must be muqaddam. In other words, mubtada must be muakhar. But here that's not the case. Here khabar is, if you look at the original text here, lillahi ala nasi hijjul bayt. The mubtada is delayed, hijj, and it's ma'rifah, it's not nakira. So then the question is why? One of the benefits of having khabar muqaddam is what's called al-hasr. And taqdeemul khabar yufidul hasr. We haven't gotten there yet, so I'll talk about it later. So from a purely grammatical perspective, khabar can be made muqaddam. Sometimes it's required. That's when mubtada is nakira. In this case, it's not required. If it's not required, why is Allah putting the khabar first? To create a rhetorical effect, a rhetorical semantic called al-hasr. We'll talk about that when we get there, inshallah. So khabar is muqaddam and it's awwal. That's the first perspective on ala nas. Let me actually copy this verse here so I can refer to it more easily. Okay. So this is the original wording. Now what we're going to do is we're going to slightly reorganize it just for the purposes of learning. But I want to give you a warning, don't do this. Don't do this publicly. Okay? What I am about to do, don't do it publicly. Why? Because you're changing the order of words in the Quran, and that's haram and it's kufr also. But it's only allowed if you want to analyze it grammatically and linguistically. So or let's say hajjul bayt, or I'm going to change it to al-hajju. I'm going to simplify it. Al-hajju, and don't use publicly, only allowed for learning purposes. If you do this publicly, then do it at your own risk. Because you will get attacked verbally or physically in the Muslim world. People take religion very seriously in the Muslim world. And if they see you tampering, doing anything with the Quran, even a single letter, you will get attacked physically. So this is only allowed for learning purposes. So al-hajj is mubtada. Notice I, instead of hijjul bayt, I'm gonna just shorten it to al-hajj, meaning the hajj. And you can say ala nasi lillahi. Okay, so al-hajj is mubtada, then ala nas is khabar awwal. Khabar awwal, I'm going to call it kha one, kha one. And lillahi is khabar thanin, and I'm going to call it kha two. Okay, that's one way to reorganize the syntax. What is syntax? Syntax is the word order, tartibul kalimat. If you reorganize this in this manner, then ala nas is khabar awwal. However, there is one more way you can organize it. You can reorder the syntax as follows. Instead of saying al-hajju ala nasi lillahi, you can put lillahi first. In that case, that becomes khabar awwal, and ala nas second. So this and this are very similar, very subtle difference. Al-hajju ala nas. The hajj is on the people for Allah. Look at this one. Al-hajju lillahi. Al-hajj is for Allah on the people. It's on the, okay? Subtle difference. Basically, the idea is same, that people have to do the hajj for Allah, right? If you go with this syntax, then ala nas is khabar awwal. And it's muqaddam because it appeared before the mubtada in the original verse. If, on the other hand, you go with this syntax, then what's khabar awwal? Khabar awwal is lillahi, and then what's annas? Ala nas. Ala nas would then be khabar muqaddam thanin, second khabar. That's what I'm trying to say here. It's خبر مقدم أول على أن تقدير الكلام على أن تقدير الكلام on the basis. على here means on the basis, or the condition, the shart is that تقدير الكلام is حج البيت على الناس لله. That's what I'm doing here. الحج على الناس. If this is your taqdeer, if this is how you order the syntax and it's valid, then it justifies saying that على الناس is خبر أول, خبر مقدم أول. If on the other hand you reorder the syntax to be this, الحج لله على الناس, then of course it's خبر ثان, and the تقدير is حج البيت لله على الناس. Okay, so why do we do this taqdeer? This taqdeer helps us identify the i'rab. And they do this type of this technique of doing taqdeer is very common in i'rab books, where if there's a complicated expression or sophisticated expression, such as this one, where the order is reversed, inverted, they call it inverted subject predicate order, then in order to justify and study the i'rab, we have to revert back to the original order of things. The original order of things is to put the mubtada first. So in the taqdirul kalam, they always go back to the asl, so that we can clearly prove and study and justify and understand why it's khabar muqaddam. So whether you say ala nasi lillahi or you say lillahi ala nas, in both the cases, both of the shibhul jumlas, lillahi and ala nas, are khabar. Either khabar awal or khabar thani, depending on how you do taqdeer. Both are valid interpretations. Okay. So I'm going to remove this. Go. The third possibility for ala nas, which is a shibhul jumla, is that it's muta'alliq. This is a technical term, muta'alliq. Now, let me explain muta'alliq. So, whenever there's a shibul jumla, in the vast majority of the types of shibul jumla, there's always a ta'alluq, linguistic connection. So when we say muta'alliq, it means we're saying linguistically connected to. The theory says that every shibul jumla must have a ta'alluq, linguistic connection. In other words, what they're saying is shibul jumla can't stand on its own. It's always there for something else. It's always there to modify a fi'l or shibhul fi'l. And there are two exceptions where there's no ta'alluq. So that's the advanced understanding. The beginner or level understanding, which is the one that we acquired in QL2, Introductory Arabic Grammar, is that if you see a shibul jumla, then it can be a khabar for a mubtada, or it can be a na'at for a man'ut, or it can be a hal or a sahib al-hal, or it can be silatul mawsul, the sentence that comes after ism mawsul. These are the four things, four grammatical functions we studied for shibul jumla in Introductory Arabic Grammar QL2. We did not go into muta'alliq business. The muta'alliq term comes from advanced understanding of mubtada and khabar, where if the khabar is shibul jumla, we don't say khabar is shibul jumla, we say it's muta'alliq bi khabar mahthuf. تقدير الكلام حج البيت لله واجب. This is muta'allaq. The word wajibun is implied, understood. And that word is the khabar. That is mahdhuf. So it's saying that the shibul jumla that you see here, ala nasi, is not really khabar, according to this third opinion or understanding. It's actually connected to a khabar mahdhuf. تقدير الكلام لله حج البيت لله واجب على الناس. So according to this grammatically valid interpretation, this the shibul jumla ala nas is not the khabar. It's actually linguistically connected or semantically linked, or connected to a khabar mahdhuf, which is wajibun. And I usually put the mahdhuf in parenthesis in my textbooks. So there's a hidden khabar here, according to this advanced understanding of shibul jumla ala nas. And according to, so what it's saying is that ala nas is not the khabar. Okay, it's not khabar awwal muqaddam, it's not khabar thani muqaddam. In fact, it is muta'alliq bi khabar mahdhuf. There's a hidden implicit khabar wajibun to which the shibul jumla ala nas is muta'alliq. So that's the understanding of muta'alliqun, ay shibhul jumlati. Shibhul jumla ala nas is muta'alliq, connected to khabar mahdhuf. Where is the khabar mahdhuf? Wajibun. Wajibun is the khabar mahdhuf. And it's what kind of word this is? This is wajibun is shibhul fi'l, ismul fa'il. So coming back to the theory, again, if there's a shibhul jumla, this is the advanced theory, advanced understanding, which we did not study in QL2. The advanced understanding of shibhul jumla says that if you have a shibhul jumla, then it's not khabar or na'at or hal or silatul mawsul. In fact, it is linked to a mahdhuf, which is khabar or na'at or hal or silatul mawsul and other things. If that's the case, if you do not accept the shibhul jumla being khabar, which is the advanced understanding, then you have to find a mahdhuf and connect it to it, link it to it. That mahdhuf is wajib. Where did we get the word wajib from? Because this expression, ala nas, it's on the people, meaning wajib on the people. So this expression gives us the idea of wajib. So this is an advanced, that's why it says QL5 here, whereas this one says QL2. Okay. So three possible ways to look at ala nas grammatically. QL2 understanding, just call it khabar, muqaddam, awwal or thani. QL5 understanding, no, this is not khabar, this is linked to a hidden or implicit khabar, which is wajib. So the taqdeerul kalam would be what? The taqdeerul kalam, according to this advanced understanding, hang on a second, would be, whoops, too many typos today. Taqdeerul kalam, according to this advanced understanding, is hijjul bayti wajibun. So wajibun is khabar. Hijj, again, hijj is mubtada, doesn't change. It's always mubtada regardless of your taqdeer. And wajib is khabar mahdhuf. And then both of these shibul jumlas, lillahi and ala nas, are muta'alliq, connected, linked to the khabar mahdhuf, wajibun. So just a quick recap. According to these two opinions, according to these two understandings, khabar can be, shibul jumla can be khabar. According to this understanding, which is the advanced and more deeper understanding from QL5, khabar cannot be shibul jumla. Shibul jumla cannot be khabar. Shibul jumla cannot be khabar or na'at or hal or silatul mawsul. It has to be linked to some mahdhuf khabar. So if you don't see a clear-cut khabar, instead you see a shibul jumla, find out what that khabar is. That khabar could be mawjudun. For example, if I say zaydun fil bayt. According to this advanced understanding, fil bayt is not the khabar, but according to a simpler understanding of QL2 level understanding, which both understandings are valid. Okay, both are completely valid. But if you want to be more technically and academically precise, this advanced understanding, of course, is more precise. So if you look at a sentence like Zaydun fil bayt, according to the beginner level understanding, fil bayt is khabar, that's it, move on. It's shibul jumla khabar, that's it, move on, nothing else to discuss here. But according to this advanced understanding, they'll say, no, 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 shibul jumla cannot be khabar, we know that. So what's the khabar? They would say mawjudun. And this is called kaunun amun, a general existence. Mawjudun. So they would say Zaydun mawjudun fil bayt. Mawjudun is the khabar to which shibul jumla is linked to. So this is similar to when we say Zaydun mawjudun fil bayt. When we say Zaydun fil bayt, according to introductory understanding, fil bayt is khabar. It's shibul jumla khabar, that's it, nothing else to discuss, move on. According to the advanced understanding, which is actually more academically and technically more precise, they would say, no, 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 shibul jumla is never khabar. Okay, then what's the khabar? You have to find an appropriate khabar, and they say it's hidden, it's mahdhuf, or deleted. Mahdhuf means deleted, and they would say it's something like mawjudun. Mawjudun is what they call kaunun amun, it's a general existence. Whereas wajibun is more contextually appropriate khabar. It's what they call kaunun khasun. It's more contextually appropriate for the given context. So when we say, again, when we say Zaydun mawjudun, Zaydun fil bayt, what the advanced understanding of QL5 level understanding is that the khabar is mawjudun. Okay. All right. The next thing for us to talk about is the word hijj, which of course is mubtada'un mu'akhar, mu'akhar, delayed mubtada. Of course, it's delayed because the khabar, as we learned earlier, is muqaddam. If the khabar is muqaddam, right, then mubtada must be mu'akhar. In other words, if the mubtada is delayed, the khabar must be muqaddam. It goes both ways, right? The normal order is to put the mubtada first, then khabar after. But sometimes, for rhetorical reasons or grammatical reasons, the order is inverted, reversed. And that's what we're seeing here. And there's a wisdom behind it, which is al-hasr. We'll talk about it in just a few minutes, inshallah. So for the standard i'rab that you'll find in any even introductory level Arabic grammar books is mubtada'un mu'akhkharun marfu'un wa alamatu raf'ihi ad-dhammah al-zahira ala akhiri. You can see ad-dhammah here, explicitly mentioned, clearly pronounced. Hijju. The dhamma is a sign that this word is marfu, and it's dhamma zahira, not dhamma muqaddara. Muqaddara is a dhamma that is, you can think of it as virtual dhamma, a dhamma that is not there, but it's assumed for grammatical reasons, for theoretical reasons, it's assumed to be there, although it's not written, pronounced, heard, or you don't see it. So that's the i'rab of hijj from grammar perspective. And of course, just to refresh your memories, we looked at hijj from sarf perspective as well. When we looked at hijj from sarf perspective, we said this is masdar for hajja yahujju, hijjan wa hajjan. There are two masdars. Hijj and hajj both have the same meaning, although there is a minority opinion that says hijj and hajj have a subtle difference, but I'm not going with that opinion. And it's shibhul fi'l. Remember shibhul fi'l? What are the ashbahul fi'l that we studied? We spent an entire unit talking about, in QL3, Advanced Arabic Morphology, the previous textbook, we talked about the ashbahul fi'l, the verb resemblers or verbal nouns. You can call them verbal nouns. I like to call them verb resemblers. They have some verbiness in them in the fact that they have amal. They can make a fa'il, take a fa'il, they can take a maf'ul bihi. And it's amil. Amil meaning ya'malu. عملا إعرابيا فيرفع أو ينصب. مضاف, again it's grammar, مضاف إلى مفعوله. The مضاف إليه البيت is مفعول به for the عامل الحج مصدر, and it's also مضاف إليه مجرور. So there's double إعراب happening here. إعراب from grammar perspective, مضاف إليه مجرور. And you learn that in any introductory Arabic grammar book, you will learn al-mudaf ilayh majroor, done. But if you really look deep, you realize this is actually maful bihi for hijj, which is a masdar amil. So let's go back over here. So the grammatical analysis of hijj is mubtada, mu'akhar, marfu, alam rafihi, ad-dhamma, al-zahira ala akhirih. The morphological analysis of hijj is that first it's masdar, second it's amil, and it's mudaf to its own maful bihi, which is the word al-bayti. So al-bayti is maful bihi for masdar, but it's also majroor, mudaf ilayh majroor, and that's why there's a kasra ending. And did I mention the i'rab of al-bayti somewhere here? So yes, I did mention it here, and we'll talk about that inshallah. So this is, I mean, subhanallah, the miraculous nature of Arabic. The word hajj, and then it's just so much information that is, it's loaded with information. There's so many things I can say about the word hajj and hajj. It's masdar, it's amil, it's mubtada, it's marfu, it's mudaf. There's a mudaf alayh after it, which is majrur, but it's actually maful bihi because this is masdar. And then what does hajj mean? It means to intend. And are there different lughat? Yes, there's hajj and hajj. Then there are qira'at. Subhanallah, if I want to test an Arabic teacher's knowledge, I can ask them, hey, tell me everything you know about the word hijj as used in this segment of the verse. The more they tell me about hijj, the more I'll know how deep and advanced their knowledge is. The most basic knowledge about hijj is that it's mubtada, mu'akhar grammatically, and it's masdar morphologically. That's the least minimum bare bones. Okay, so the next thing is the al that is attached to al-bayt. Whenever we see al, we have to ask ourselves, which one of those types of al is it? Here, the al is al-ahdiyya, al-dhikriyya. It's known by common knowledge that is acquired because of prior mention. Uhida, it has become known lisabqi dhikrihi because of it being mentioned previously. And again, anwa'u al, we don't need to look at the different types of al, which we spent an entire lesson talking about. We looked at al-ahdiyya and al-jinsiyya. And how do we know? Where was it actually mentioned? Fil ayat sabiqa. In the previous verse, it says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم إن أول بيت, surely the first bait, وضع للناس, that has been put for the people, للذي ببكة, is the one in Bakka. And Bakka is just another name for Makkah. Makkah and Bakka are two names. Both are mentioned once in the Quran. You can say Makkah or you can say Bakka. They're same. But according to some ulama, Makkah and Bakka have a subtle difference. So that's al that is attached to al-bayt. So it's not talking, this is not al-jinsiyya. It's not a genus al. Because in that case, you can visit any house for Hajj. And that's absurd. That is not supported by the Quran or the Sunnah. Is'al is ahdiya dhikriya. It's been defined or mentioned previously in this verse. It's the house, the bait that is at Bakka. And finally, we have al-bayti, which is mudafun ilayhi majroor, standard Arab that you can get in any introductory Arabic grammar book. وعلامة جره الكسرة الظاهرة على آخره. Standard stuff. مضاف إليه مجرور. وهو, and as we have stated before, كما سبق, as preceded. Where did we see it? Right here. Oops. مفعول به. It's right for the master. وهو كما سبق. Let's put some commas here. كما سبق مفعول به للمصدر. عمل المصدر is the reference from QL3. بدليل قوله تعالى. Here's a strong evidence. Dalil is evidence to support the fact that al-bayti is maf'ul bihi for masdar. Here's a dalil. Allah says in the Quran, فَمَنْ حَجَّ الْبَيْتَ. Point of interest, the shahid, the evidence is hajja, fi'l madi. Hajja is fi'l madi here. Al-bayta. Look at the maf'ul bihi. And there's a fatha ending on the ta. So this is a dalil that supports the fact that the word hijj, which is masdar, can do what the word hajj, which is the fi'l, because it's shibhul fi'l. So just like hajja has a maf'ul bihi al-bayta, hijj can also have a maf'ul bihi, except that it's mudaf ilayh majroor. So the word al-bayti has multi-dimensional, there's two dimensions here. It's majroor, the lafzuhu is majroor. On the face of it, the face value is that it's mudaf ilayh majroor. And that's what we teach to beginner grammar students. But then advanced students know that it's also maf'ul bihi, or the masdar amil preceding it. So that's all we will say when it comes to an-nahu. Nahu is always the largest branch in linguistics. There's so much going on in nahu, right? So in the next lesson, we'll continue with the balagha and qira'at and al-lugha, inshallah. Walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.